Hey everyone, we are back. With me as always is Corey. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
And this time via VHS cam is returning special guest Amiga Bill. Say hi, Bill.
What's up, Mike?
And the game we're playing this time is Warriors of Fate.
Yeah, the horse stuff, it seems, is very similar to Knights of the Round, which leads me to believe that this was built off the same engine.
Same engine, yeah. Definitely.
Just a theory,
Yeah, I'll definitely check that when I edit the video and put up the dates of the games. But yeah, we discussed that when playing Knights of the Round. It really feels like, and it's certainly the workflow sort of, or MO of big game studios. You put in all this work and pay programmers to make a really solid engine. You're going to reuse that engine as many times as you can to, make a good return on your investment. And why reinvent the wheel if you already invented a great wheel? And
True, yeah.
To me, this game seems like the pinnacle. Like this one, and I think Alien versus Predator, I'm assuming, are some of the later ones that may have used the same engine, or at the very least were like the pinnacle of Capcom beat 'em up games. Like not only were the graphics fantastic, but they added those kind of special moves like down, up, and attack.
So I got a question about game engines for you
Yep.
guys. Like when you're programming a game, using a game engine, what's it like using an engine? Is it like using a piece of software in a way, or is it more like predefined code?
Yeah,
Like what's it like?
both.
What's it like to use a game engine?
Both. So, and it also depends on what game engine you're using. So, if in-house you make, like, for example, we're working on Metro Siege and we're working on Damon Claw, our own retro projects. And Metro Siege is being done, like it's being made right from the get-go to be able to export for classic Amigas and also modern platforms. And so what that means is with the engine, it's already got all of the actual code, all of the logic for being able to control players, for them being able to walk around and have jump physics and change animations based on input, all that stuff. Even enemy AI, the core of all that logic is already there. Even how to get the different screen scrolling and camera effects like shakes, all that stuff is all pre-programmed and interacts more and more with a set of tools like the Retro Animator tool, originally the prototype of Spriter, that we're using to animate the characters for Metro Siege. So what that means is, as your game engine gets, even when it's originally just for that one game that you're making, as the game develops, the tool set and the logic, the sort of the whole combination of logic, everything it can handle gets more and more sophisticated and more tied into tools like tile map editors and animation editors. And the more that happens, the more it evolves away from being just raw code for a particular game in an engine. Because if you can imagine, once all your game code is done and once it's just loading in full character animation sets from an animator, then you just change the animated character to look, for example, like Metro Siege is a very Final Fight or Streets of Rage 2 game we're working on, but we could use the same exact code and just swap out those animation files and replace, like, Cody type characters with characters like this with swords, or like Knights of the Round or Golden Axe characters, and suddenly you have a sword fighting game and you've changed none of the code. So that's what it means to use an engine, is it's the combination of the core game logic and these editors that you've sort of integrated in. So simply by changing the sort of artistic work that goes into it, you can end up with very different games much more quickly than reprogramming the whole game from scratch. So in a nutshell, that's what we mean by engine. Like Damon Claw, the other game we're working on, we could very easily, like right now it's a guy with gauntlets. It's kind of set in a medieval fantasy world, but the game was largely based or influenced by Black Belt for the Sega Master System. And we could take the same exact code base of Damon Claw and replace all the art with, a little karate fighter and enemies like that. And we can make it look and feel like a very different game with very little additional work to change whatever AI or code we needed to make it behave more like a, 16-bit or 32-bit style black belt clone.
Yeah, one kind of easier, like a simple way of thinking about it is game genres. People would build an engine for a genre of game, like Brawler. But this is the case, with Damon Claw. The potential there is you depending on how the code is set up, sometimes a lot of it's not just based on gameplay logic and stuff like that. It's all in what you're doing to render the graphics. You've heard the term graphics engine too. People have graphics engines that they'll use for different genres of games. So it is a bit of a loose term, but it's really just a code base for building all of that. It's an old term in that people used to not have things like authoring softwares and stuff. But it still means universally, kind of as Mike defined it, which is you have a lot of base code written already that do all of these things that you're going to need across the board for many games.
Right.
And once you build those things, it just like what Capcom has done with these games, this is the result of, I'm sure they used a lot of the engines in this bundle for other, the big license games that everybody remembers. But these were their original titles that they put in this bundle. And it kind of shows, you can tell the way a lot of things behave similarly.
Right.
And so, that's what we're hoping to do, with a lot of our games. It's building a lot of foundational stuff there so that future games are easier to make.
Yep. So, and the other cool thing is you can evolve an engine to handle many more things. Like, you may have heard of that beat-em-up game maker called MAME. That's open source. That's been around for 1 million years. I think that's what it is, right? Is it MAME?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about that is it originally started being developed as a game engine to make shmup games. And then over time, they developed interest in supporting other things. And so they just kept adding to the engine and to the tool set and to the scripting language that you can use within it. So we have a button mashing minigame to eat rice balls and stuff.
We're gonna eat somehow.
But anyway, so like sort of what Corey was talking about, you could say, and a lot of people probably would call even things like the Unreal Engine and Unity a game engine these days, even though it is not already predefined to make a very specific game. But they do have templates you can load in that are pre-set up to do specifically first-person shooter or, any kind of game. The term is a little bit vague these days, but in general, it's a code base and tool set that means you're not programming everything from scratch with your game. And so, like in the case of our projects, we haven't made any other games yet with the team and stuff. So we're simultaneously creating the first games like Damon Claw and Metro Siege, but then that is simultaneously developing games. Classic trope of games like this. But does anyone need this health down here?
I'll get it.
Okay.
There we go.
So we're not just developing the games, we're developing these engines that are getting more and more flexible and sophisticated and easier to work with. And then, like I said, by just changing the creative stuff, the actual art in these tools, tile map editors, animation editors, and now there's even like subsystem logic editors like the Metro Siege engine has an entire little scripting language to make cinematic cutscenes in the game. So all of that now, like Metro Siege is taking much, much longer to develop because the tools and the whole code base had to be developed at the same time. Right. But with the successive games that will be made on the same engine, everything's established, everything's thoroughly bug tested. There's now really comfortable, easy to use editors for everything. and scripting languages. So the future games are going to be able to develop much quicker. And in regards to the Damon Claw engine, even though it's based on just walking from left to right, and there's no real projectile weapon, so to speak, like the player doesn't shoot things, it would be very fast in Construct 3, which is what we use to make the engine. It would be very fast to change up the logic inside the code base, basically, and turn it into a Mega Man style game where you're running and shooting instead of slashing a sword, or in this case of Damon Claw, punching with your gauntlets. So that's what I mean about game engines. Once you have the main set, like any 2D side-scrolling game needs gravity, you need to be able to jump, you need to be able to land on platforms and, be stopped by walls and solid objects and all that kind of stuff. And then there's hit points and UIs or HUDs that show you all that stuff is already done. You could just swap out the graphics and make really easy changes to the code, and you could suddenly go from, have very drastically different games made very quickly off of that same initial base engine. So, anyway, I hope that answered the question. That was pretty long-winded, but I hope that covers everything.
It does, yeah. I'd like to see an engine in action. So the Alpine
Yeah.
9000 engine from Alex Brown, are you guys using that one at all?
Yeah, that is the Engine 9000 by Alex Brown, or Alpine as he's known in the community, is the Metro Siege engine. And that actually started and has been evolving since either Worthy, the other game they published previously with Pixel Glass, or maybe even before that. And so that's what I mean about engines being able to evolve. Like, you could look at Worthy, I'll splice some footage in there, and see what a massively different kind of game it is from Metro Siege. And just over time, as Alex needed to keep adding new features, he just augmented that engine, and it evolved into what's now called the Engine 9000, what I've been calling the Metro Siege engine. And we certainly would love to and have plans to make other future games using the same beautiful engine now. Once Metro Siege is done. Like, Corey and I have been talking, it would be really cool to someday do a game more like this, or a Golden Axe style game with the same engine. And maybe even...
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, like, we're thinking of actually using that as the opportunity to augment the Engine 9000 to support AGA, so we could go full arcade quality. For those that don't know, AGA is the later, more advanced Amiga computer chipset, which was much more... You could have many more colors on screen and moving objects and all that kind of stuff, and more memory, so you can have more frames of animation and all that.
And couple that with the modular animation system,
Yep.
and you'll get some really nice, even better results. If you enjoy our content and want to keep up to date on our games, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you want to support our projects, consider becoming a patron. The link's in the description, and we'll see you soon.